Welcome to False Start Story Mode. If you haven't seen the show before, hi, I'm Greg. I'm your host. Lewis is producing the show, so all of these technical difficulties are his fault. How you doing today, Lewis?
Other than the technical difficulties, I'm doing fine.
Just for total reference here, he's like, I'm going to do a countdown for the first one before we realized that we were all muted. For the first time we tried to start the show, he's like, I'm going to try and do a countdown. And I was like, okay. And he's just like, okay, I'm going to unmute you and then we're going to do a countdown. All right. And then just silence. And then it's like, wait, are we unmuted? It's the way you do a countdown is you leave yourself muted and you count down verbally 5, 4, 3 until you hit like 2, and then you go, and then you then you unmute and then you start. Anyways. Hello and welcome to Story Mode. If you haven't seen the Story Mode before, it is a story-based podcast where we sit down and talk about a short game that we played over the last 30 days. Think of it like a book club. Usually we pick something that's either free or that nobody on the internet has heard of. That's usually our jam. This time we're playing a game that I think some people have actually played, which is weird for us, especially the past few. Real quick, everything in this show is going to be spoilerific, so if you don't want spoilers, I recommend you end the stream right now and then wait for the archive, which will be up in like 48 hours on my YouTube channel and SoundCloud, assuming we're on time. Also, the game that we're playing today is called Marie's Room, and it was free, so there's that.
It continues to be free.
Yes, it's on Steam. It's free. Go download it. It's like 30 minutes.
Go pick it up right now. It takes you, like Brian said, 30 minutes.
And while we're at it, let's finish introductions. Eggman, how you doing today, man?
Doing excellently. Been having a pretty good weekend. It's been productive and yet relaxing, which is all that I want my weekends to be.
And my name is Greg, or Blind. And I'm the host of this stream, and I am exhausted. So if I like false start and stumble on my like speech, it's because I'm really tired. Work murdered me the last 2 days. So yeah, let's get right to it. I don't think there's too much more to say.
Yeah, so Maria's Room is a first-person experience game like we typically do. And you play as a girl named Kelsey, and you're visiting your friend Maria's house to pick up something in it. You don't really know why you're there, and the whole story is basically you go into Marie's room and you basically interact with things in the room to discover the story of what happened 34 years ago.
It's like an interactive point and click that you walk around in a 3D space, basically, or a hidden object game even.
Yeah, 3D space that's about the size of an actual bedroom. Like, I'm pretty sure that room is about the size of my bedroom.
It's bigger than my room.
Bigger than my room.
It's like a very, very heavily condensed What Remains of Edith Finch. Also, I kind of got how do I explain this? I kind of got Gone Home vibes from this, at least for the first little bit when I was playing. It's like, this feels like I'm playing something that was very heavily inspired by Gone Home. I don't know if you ever played that, but
no.
Basically, it's this, but a whole house.
Yeah, Gone Home is on my list of games I need to get to. Maybe that'll be a story mode game one of these days.
That would be timely. Really timely. Anyway, so as Eggman said, you're going to your friend's house to go pick up something. The way the game conveys the story to you is essentially you randomly find items, and you can find them in any order, which can give you a very disjointed story if you are not unlucky, but yeah, I guess unlucky. And then you go over to the diary and you open up the diary, and it's got a little scrapbook. And as you pick up objects and examine them in the room, it fills up the scrapbook until eventually you have the whole scrapbook. It gives you the whole story. You unlock a suitcase, and then you get the end of the game. Also, we should mention that like when you first look at the scrapbook, when you walk into the bedroom, it goes from current date, which is 2040 something, back to 2018, which is time of events of the game. It goes back in time to when you were reading the notebook.
Yeah, because of that, I kind of am curious whether this is an experience that the developer modified from his own life, or whether he saw it peripherally in his life.
I don't think this is a based on true story thing, although it's hard to say, really. I don't see any evidence that it is.
It's also worth pointing out that there are a number of dates, because the journal, which is what, Blind's calling the scrapbook, the game refers to it as a journal. The journal has dates that are set all the way as far as, I think, July or August of 2018, which, as of the time of making this podcast, has not happened yet.
Yeah, I think this is just like a fictional story to make you think.
Yep. It could be transplanted too. I mean, like, of course, it doesn't take place in the far future. Well, sort of does at the very beginning, because like Blind said, you start in the year 2042 and you go into the past to kind of discover what happened in Kelsey and Marie's past to cause her to go back to Marie's house, basically.
I will comment that, like, it's not super explicit what date it is in the game, and when you notice the date on like the computer and whatnot, I was a little bit surprised because that is a really old TV in her bedroom. Like I was fully expecting them to be like, yeah, this is 1994 or 1993, because that's like what it feels like technology wise in her room. Like there's cassette tape doormat, stuff like that. It's like, this feels 90s, but
I guess, but then there's also like a cell phone with a sparkly case, and it's like,
yeah, no, this was like my immediate impressions when I first walked in,
I think part of that is because it takes place in small town Midwest USA. It takes place in a town called Orange Grove, which, if we're assuming is related to the real place Orange Grove, it's a city in Texas, a very small city with, I think it's only 1,000 people or so in it.
I got the impression it's supposed to be California, mostly because they mention actually going out to a literal orange grove and picking oranges, something that is not grown in Texas.
There's a dude with a banana tree in Vancouver, so I mean, if
I feel like you can, the climate in Texas in some areas is probably hospitable to oranges.
Sure, but
if not
no
ideal,
one who really does grow them.
Fair. I don't live in Texas and you do, so.
Are we really arguing where you can grow oranges?
Well, it gives us context as to where we are, right? Because they do visit an orange grove, and so in that respect, it would make more sense if the town was in Florida or California, because those are the two largest producers of oranges in the United States.
Did they mention the name of the town?
Yes, it's called Orange Grove. It's on the thermostat on the wall, and that's also how you figure out what year it is.
I mean, the year's also in the computer. Is that a real town?
It is.
Okay. Well, then, wouldn't we just know then?
But there's no orange groves next to Orange Grove, Texas. So
maybe there's, as I said, just one crazy person growing oranges.
Unless the Google Maps images that I saw were when... No, they're just trees, right? So they'd be there even in the winter. I don't know what I'm thinking.
I thought I was the tired one. What?
Yeah. But anyways, let's give a little bit of background for the characters. So if you kind of go around the room, I think it's kind of meant to be done either clockwise or counterclockwise, as long as you start closest to the door, and that gives you the most context for Marie's early life. You basically find out that she was a ward or something of this place called the Food Reserve, and basically the Food Reserve was a place
seemed like a food bank.
Yeah, and she was poor. I guess not homeless.
Well, let's clarify real quick, because there are three main characters. There's Marie, who the game is titled after.
We're talking about Marie though right now. Specifically, Marie
was not the one who was hungry. That was Kelsey, I thought. Marie was the one working at the...
Kelsey is your player.
Right.
Yeah.
Did I meant Kelsey. Did I say Marie when I first introduced it?
Yeah.
My bad.
And there's also Trevor, I believe. So 3 names: Marie, Kelsey, Trevor.
Yeah.
And there's also a teacher who's mentioned briefly, but...
There's a couple other...
And the father of Marie, but...
And so basically... Kelsey is the one who's often going hungry and relies on food from this food bank, food reserve place. And she kind of grows up like this. And one day, Marie comes and she's volunteering at this food bank, and they meet up. And I think it's Kelsey recognizes her from school, and she's so embarrassed because she hates to be seen like needy, like being a needy person, basically.
I mean, who does?
Yeah, it's totally understandable to me, because I mean, that sort of thing can be very embarrassing if you're trying to keep up like a persona that doesn't match with like what you portray in school, which was definitely what it seemed like she was trying to do. Like, she was in the cheerleading clique basically in high school, and she like wore fancy clothes, and she didn't want to be seen riding a bike because it was like uncool or whatever. So it kind of
bikes are rad. I don't know what's wrong with her.
I think it's a very Midwestern thing. Like, driving a car is required in the Midwest, and even if you can drive a bike, like, a car is needed. So the sooner that you can have one, the cooler you are amongst your friends, kind of. I mean, that's exactly how it was for me, at least.
I don't want to argue about what should and shouldn't be cool, but that's really dumb.
I mean, I agree.
Bikes are badass.
I'm just saying how it is.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, there's a historic reason why cars are so revered in the U.S. It's long story.
Yeah.
I wish I had a car where I grew up, but you know.
And so then you kind of get hints that there's this love interest, Trevor, who is dating Kelsey for some time, and Marie figures out pretty quickly that Trevor's not a very kind person, to put it lightly. And she kind of nudges Kelsey and eventually like just tells her straight out like she needs to break up with Trevor. And the rest of like the clues that you get revolve around kind of like build up this picture of Trevor and Marie and Kelsey and their interactions with each other. And you figure out, actually, at least I figured out most of this through the journal. Like, there's clues that you get from the items in the room, but
I mean, that's where the story is conveyed in the game, right?
Yeah.
So you find the item, you get a little snippet from Marie, ?
From Kelsey.
Or Kelsey, yeah. Kelsey talking about Marie, and then you open up the journal, and then you get the context.
Yeah, and the journal is written by Marie, so that's the context that you get from Marie.
Yeah, and right at the very beginning, you hear Marie's voice saying, "I know that you've been reading my journal." It's like,
yeah,
really, people aren't very good at hiding journals.
Let's mention quickly too, the voice acting here is really quite good.
Until the end.
What do you mean the end? I
don't know, the end of the ending voice acting.
Oh, you mean the long cutscene at the end?
Yeah, the long cutscene at the end is not quite the long cutscene at the end, but like that part where you're walking down the stairs at the end is like, I don't know, the voice acting just falls on its face for me.
I don't know. It didn't.
Was good though.
It didn't really strike me as better or worse than anything else. So
for a free game, it was surprisingly good. You know.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at with the voice acting.
Yeah.
I guess to continue the plot synopsis, one thing I wanted to mention is that there's sort of this structure. So, like, the half of the story you end up uncovering, Marie is dating Trevor, and there's sort of this hint that there's something really, it's not a healthy relationship. I don't think they've ever mentioned in detail what happened when Trevor snuck them into the movie La La Land. But they mentioned that something happened that pretty much upset Kelsey with Trevor for the rest of the story.
I think he was just being a dick.
Yeah, something like that.
To be honest.
I mean, he might have been doing drugs in the theater because he was a drug dealer. That's not, I don't know if it's explicitly stated, but it's at least alluded to.
No, that's what you're supposed to do when you watch Tron, not La La Land.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But eventually, Kelsey convinces Marie convinces Kelsey to break up with Trevor, And then Trevor decides to start stalking Marie and sending threatening messages, including, dozens of phone calls every day and emails, and it indicated it was a lot, but no one was really gonna do anything. The police wasn't responding to it. The school wasn't responding to it.
I guess that's that frustrates me a lot about this story, because in this day and age, and maybe he's thinking of a different context than I'm aware of, but I don't think, because we know that these events take place in 2018. I don't think that it's likely that if you report something to the police or to your school that they're going to do nothing. Like that's exceptionally dangerous, and it's not looking out for the well-being of the students. It just seems, I know it's a story, but like, if we're gonna put it in the real world and have it take place in this year, like, that seems ridiculous to me.
This is a story that's talking about abuse and unhealthy relationships, right? And
Yes.
This kind of goes back to why I thought that this game was taking place in the 90s until I landed on the computer, because there was a lot of things in the game where it's like, man, this wouldn't happen in 2018, but maybe that's what the game is trying to talk about,
Maybe. I mean, never underestimate the stupidity of people.
That is completely valid.
Because there are two ways this could be realistic. One is either Kelsey wasn't saying enough, because yes, it is a crime to make death threats or to stalk, but if she wasn't explicit enough of what was happening, the cops may not see an actual crime there.
But it was Marie who was reporting it, not
Marie.
Kelsey.
I think we're all getting the names confused. Anyway, but Marie was reporting it, and if she wasn't being explicit enough, the cops may not see any crime that was able to be investigated at that point. But
yeah, we just kind of have to take that for granted, because we're never really told more than, like, I reported it to the police and I talked to the administrators at the school.
And the opposite of that is, when you're talking about a small town, something where everybody knows everyone, the police force can actually be very inactive in this sort of situation. That if it's like, oh, well, I know that kid's father, I'll just go talk to him. There's nothing that's really serious going on. And so things can kind of be swept under the rug when towns are really small.
Yeah, I mean, I can see that. I don't think that, like, I think that it's a uneasy ground for us to take the stance of, oh, this wouldn't happen in 2018. Is it less likely? Yeah. But could it not happen?
Yeah, and I see that too. It's just something that I thought of, like, it would have been more realistic to me, and I don't think that that's necessarily what they were going for. But I think it would have been more realistic if they had said it, like, in the mid 2000s or the late 90s.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is a short story that is discussing a topic which is kind of in the media right now, and trying to put that in a digestible format for people out there. That's basically it, really. It's just relationships can be abusive, and talk about it, basically, is what this game is talking about.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, I don't know if it even sends the best message.
I don't know if it does a great job of it. I don't.
It's because even though they do eventually talk about it, and they've broken up for like X number of months, and Marie is started to realize that Trevor is, supposedly taken her cat and killed it, and is stalking her, and doing all this different stuff, and beating up her and her dad. Like, there was this event that happened where she was beaten over the head, and they never found the culprit, and he mentioned that he did it.
Yeah, I mean, it's worth mentioning that this is even before the whole stalking thing, because that Marie had an incident kind of before any of the actual events of the story that we're talking about, before she met Carrie, that her house was being robbed, her father got stabbed, and she ended up getting knocked out by a baseball bat, and they didn't ever find the assailants.
Yeah. Something else I should mention that just popped into my brain. There's a portion in this game later on where Trevor is emailing Marie, in the stalking. That wouldn't happen in 2018. He'd be using Snapchat or Instagram.
Blind, let me whip out my email and type an email
I am like kid in high school, and I'm going to email other kid in high. Nobody does that.
Nobody's done that for 10 years.
I mean, I do that, but that's professionally.
Yeah, of course.
Kids don't do that.
Yeah, it'd probably be Facebook
Come
or Instagram.
Come on.
Maybe they don't get cell service out in Orange Grove. Although I doubt that too.
It was a cell phone.
I'm sure their cell service is probably better than the internet.
True.
Anyways, sorry.
I just thought of a inconsistency. The house is... Oh, no, that was... Never mind. I was like, the house is abandoned, but there's Wi-Fi. But that was in the future, not in the past. Anyways.
That's like after Amazon has sent the drones up and blotted out the skies to beam down the internet.
Let's do it, man. I'm ready.
Yeah, me too. I don't want these constraining cables anymore.
Something,
what are we talking about?
Something Skynet.
So the moral of the story is Skynet.
Yeah.
There's sun shining through the window. Speaking of the window, that beer bottle is hard to find.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The beer bottle.
No, there's a
Maybe
beer
that's
bottle
the one I missed.
There's a beer bottle on the windowsill.
You have to get that one because it gives you one of the digits to the combo.
Well, you don't have to get all the numbers because I didn't.
You just
well, of course, yeah. I mean, you could, if you know what the number is, you could just literally go into the game and enter the code. It'd be like a 5-minute speed run, about 30 seconds of which is actual gameplay. So,
just for context, there is a case in the room, and it was one of the first things that I found. It's like it has a 5-digit combination. I'm like, I don't know what this combination is, and so you go around the room and click on everything, and eventually the journal starts filling out, and there's certain events that have red numbers on them. Like there's like, 3-year anniversary of Food Reserve Place. The La La Land ticket has a red 4, presumably for like theater number 4. And so you string all those together and you get a 5-digit combination. I got the first 4 and couldn't find the 5th one. So I was like, I'm going to guess 1. And it happened to be right, but I could have just guessed the other 9 and it would have taken like 10 seconds.
Brute forcing locks. I did that once with a 3-number lock.
3-number lock. Woo.
Yeah, they did it.
I don't think I've ever brute forced a lock.
Yeah, that's one of the only 2 like actual puzzles in the game is that there's the case and then there's the password for the computer, and those are actually done pretty well. I didn't have to look up any guides for them, except I missed one number for the case. But
may I comment, like, of all the things I thought, I saw in the game, and I was like, that was unrealistic. It was only one, and it was that they use a space in the password. Who does that?
Oh, I didn't put in a space. I think it accepts both, probably.
It didn't work without any delimiter, so I don't know.
I always put spaces in my password. Sometimes I'll put like 3 spaces at the end of a password.
Yeah, I mean, it's
quick. Now we know 3 digits of Blind's password.
It's usually okay to use spaces, but no one I know ever does. So it's like, okay,
maybe it's a Canadian thing.
I mean, it doesn't really matter as long as it's long. It doesn't matter what the contents of it are either, as long as it's long, unless it's all like
face rule your keyboard, tapping shift occasionally, and put a space at the end. Done.
What you need is entropy. Is the short version. You need entropy so that the hash actually has some.
Anyways.
Yeah. So I think that the characterization that they did in this was actually there were actually 2 developers. I can't remember the name of the second guy.
It's on the stream. Kenny Willame and Dagmar Blomart. I'm totally butchering those names. I apologize if anyone on the dev team is listening right now. That was bad.
It's Guillaume. It's a French name. Although, according to his Twitter, he lives in Belgium, I think. Anyways, I thought the characterization was really good because in addition to the things that you find out about the relationship between Marie and Kelsey and Trevor, you learn a little bit about their life, basically. Like, Kelsey was the like free-spirited person, and there was this guy who has an orange grove in their town and who also has a pool, and
Who's
so
never home.
who apparently is never home. And so she wants Marie to come with her and like go in the pool and skinny dip in there. And Marie is like the reserved, responsible person, but she ends up
Marie's
doing
the
it.
nerd.
Yeah. Yeah, like we also see on the wall that like she's interested in antimatter, and that's like her area that she wants to study when she goes into
I
college.
thought it was black holes, but then they settled on antimatter or something silly like that.
Then
Yeah.
there's comments from Kelsey about how Marie and her nerd friends. So I guess like Kelsey's like the popular sportsy girl, and then Marie's just like I'm gonna go study like a normal human being.
Normal human being.
It's worth noting that it wasn't like Kelsey was blowing off school. There's actually a line that Kelsey says when you talk about the book report, when you get to the science project they had to do, and she said that, it's like, oh, I got paired with the food reserve girl. It's like, oh, well, I was gonna still work really hard. I needed it to get my scholarship, so she had a plan. She was working.
Let's just say if Marie's playing Call of Duty, or if Marie's playing Kerbal Space Program, then Kelsey's playing Call of Duty. Moving on.
Yeah, but I think all of this lends really well to the characterization. It shows that despite the fact that Kelsey did some very mean things to Marie, like we find out later that she had broken into her house at one point and stolen something and like thrown a stone at her window, and that was found out, but the stealing wasn't found out until later. But there are redeeming qualities for her, and at the very end of the game we find out that I had assumed, actually, before I say the end of the game, when you guys were playing the game, what was your assumption as to was Marie alive or dead?
I think while I was playing the game, I wasn't expecting it to go that way at all. Okay. When I was playing this game, there was so many parallels originally with Gone Home. I thought it was going to turn into a coming out story. I'm gonna be
half expected that too.
So I was playing through it and I was reading the story. I was like, oh, this is gonna be like a short version of Gone Home. Okay. And then we got to the point where she finds the gun, and I was like, oh, this is going south fast. Okay. No, I never thought that she was dead. I thought she ran away. That's what I thought it was. I thought it was this happened. I was sad, so I skipped town.
There's a line that doesn't make sense when you think about it at the very beginning of the game. I caught it when I replayed it, because right at the beginning of the game, right at the start of the flashback. So it starts when you're reading the little note that she had wrote in her journal to Carrie saying, I know you read this, yada, yada, yada.
Kelsey.
Yeah, Kelsey. I know you read this, da, da, da. And he mentions, don't worry about me. I will be okay. And then Kelsey says, but she was not okay. And then it's never really cleared up.
I think it's hinting at like a little bit of post-traumatic stress, or a little bit of anxiety surrounding the home invasion.
Yeah, so my assumption was that Marie was dead because of that initial letter, but I think that that Kelsey saying that Marie was not okay was talking about her mental state, and she was very, like, I would imagine that all of her interactions with Trevor, even before the last scene, were very traumatizing, and so like she's very on edge and stressed out and all this stuff, and so
she went and bought a gun. That's pretty on edge and stressed out.
Yeah, we should talk about the last scene though.
Oh yeah.
Basically, once you complete the journal, you get this last cutscene, which has little star people, sparkly outline things, and it goes through the events of the night that something went wrong, which has been referenced to consistently as you go around this room. And it's when Marie and Kelsey are over at Marie's house. I can't remember what they were doing. I think they may have been in an argument, and Marie then freezes, and Trevor has gotten in through the window somehow, and they both been very careful to like not tell him where they lived.
They've been alluding that this was going to happen for a while. There was references earlier on that was how he found us, like when they were talking about the oranges and going and swimming in the guy's pool.
Basically, he followed them home. And Trevor basically proceeds to beat Marie while Kelsey is trying to get him off of her. And cat out of the way. Eventually,
cat's out of the bag. Anyways, sorry, go on.
Eventually, Marie scrambles over to her case that you open later, and which has the gun in it. And Trevor's like, "You're not gonna shoot that. You couldn't do it." And he like gets in her face, and she shoots him and kills him.
Shot him in the head.
Yeah, and yeah, I can't. That must be like an extremely traumatizing experience, and so I feel like this is a cop-out thing to say, but I feel like there was a lot of things that could have been done to avoid this situation. But maybe Trevor's just a crazy person. I think that's kind of what it is. But
I mean, he did kind of break into her house and beat the crap out of him. And then there's a news story a little bit around halfway through where they talk about another home invasion that just happened up the street and somebody was killed. So, like, if he's going around just breaking into people's houses and like murdering people, and
they mentioned that one, the home invasion with the murder, they have Trevor as the main suspect at that point.
Yep.
Yeah, I kind of wish that because we are given so little context on Trevor outside of through the lens of Marie and Kelsey, that we could have gotten more characterization for him that more subtly hinted at the fact that he was doing something bad. It could have made for a more impactful last moment, because by the time you see the final cutscene, you're like, Trevor's an asshole basically, and he's up to no good. This is very bad. So
yeah, there's a lot going on in the game aside from what we see, I feel like, and I almost wish that there was more context. Wow, words. I kind of wish that there was more context there.
Yeah, I think that more context wouldn't really have served the game as it is right now, because the room was already pretty packed full of things, and we did get the right amount of world building around our central two characters, Marie and Kelsey. And it only a little bit, but it kind of felt like Trevor was just kind of also along for the ride and happened to be the antagonist in this situation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Maybe.
It sounds like my statement made no sense, or it's just been thought-provoking. But
I mean, I'm trying to criticize the characterization in this game.
I think they did a good job of building up Trevor as a villain, not so much as a character, if that makes sense.
That's a good point, but I think that the best villains also have places as characters. And
certainly.
He doesn't really get any lines or anything. He doesn't get anything until the very end. All that you get about Trevor is he's this ominous figure that Kelsey keeps mentioning, and then Marie writes about him, but you never actually get any direct scenes or anything with him. So all you really get is their word in post. Not saying he should have a good streak or anything. I just think that it would be interesting to see that something from that character's point of view.
Yeah, we do get dialogue from both, a little bit of dialogue from Marie in the journal, and then most of the dialogue is Kelsey's. I don't know if dialogue from Trevor would have added to it. I think it would be a very different game if that aspect of it had been played to more.
Maybe, but I mean, as I brought up before, there's sort of this hint at this La La Land incident, and they don't go into much detail, which I think hinders Trevor's characterization. It's like something happened, something that upset Marie, something that Kelsey was willing to ignore, but what was it? What exactly did Trevor do? And I think not knowing what it was prevents us from understanding who the character is and why he does things.
Yeah, I want to know what his motivation to start causing home invasions was.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I didn't have an idea of what could fix it in my mind until you said that, but I think that if we had been given that little bit of context, that would have been enough for me to kind of not bring up this whole topic about Trevor being kind of poorly characterized. But yeah. Is there anything else I wanted to mention?
There are Easter eggs in the game. So there's one I found, which is on the back of the La La Land ticket you can find. There's a QR code, and if you scan it, I forget exactly what it says. I had it saved on my phone, but it got lost. But it was something like, "Hey, you found this. Thank you for playing the game."
Oh, that's no fun.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you got to find a QR code, and it's got to lead to like a random video that has another QR code in it, and then you look at that QR code, then that leads to like some random website from 1999 that reviews cabbages. Like, come on, that's so fun.
Really, I don't know. If it was a link, I think it could have been pretty funny, but I just think maybe because it was a free game, they're like, let's just kind of cut a corner here. Because it doesn't impact the gaming experience that it doesn't do that.
Yeah, I think that this is very much a passion project. Otherwise, I mean, it would have been. Yeah. He would have charged money for it. It was greenlit.
I'll say this: we've paid money for games for this show that were shorter, that were worse.
Evangeline, maybe.
Yeah.
Another adventure. I know Blind won't agree with that, but
it also wasn't shorter.
I also like the narration in Another Adventure more. I found that game really funny.
Yeah, but I was gonna say this was either a passion project or a student project. I wasn't sure which.
I don't know. That could be
either or. Really, I'm trying to criticize the game right now. I'm trying to pick holes in it, find things I didn't like. I
mean, the problem is at the end of the day, it's a free game.
Yeah,
it's like kind of Doki Doki Literature Club in a sense. It's like there are problems. There are things you can point to.
Doki Doki Literature Club impacted me. I still think about Doki Doki Literature Club. I'm not gonna think about this after today.
And that's a valid point.
Like, when I finished Doki Doki Literature Club, I sat down and I thought about it for an hour, and then I went and I bought that like $10 add-on that gives you a bunch of wallpapers just because I thought that they did a good job. You know, with this, like, I mean, it has a similar review score. It has a overwhelmingly positive review score, and it's a decent story. Yes, it addressed a topic. It was interesting, and then it ended. But aside from that, it's completely forgettable because it didn't give me any reason to really care about the subject outside of that. Well, here's a fictional story with relatively believable characters, but not enough motivation and not enough context to the story where I would want to hear more of it.
So I guess my main criterion for games that are free is that does it respect my time? And that was one of the main reasons that I disliked Doki Doki Literature Club. I still think it's a good game, but I left a bad taste in my mouth because there were certain clues that I didn't pick up on that caused me to waste a lot of time on that game. And so this one is very straightforward. Like it doesn't overstay its welcome. It's very succinct. And while I wouldn't say it is as like thought-provoking or emotionally complex as Doki Doki, it is a very contained experience. Like I had to do multiple play sessions for Doki Doki, and like after a certain point you can't save, so you have to finish it all in one sitting, and that's also not respecting my time. And I would rather pay $10 for a 4-hour, or excuse me, $10 for a half an hour game that is very respectful of my time versus play a free game that's 4 hours long that has these sorts of purposeful flaws like Doki Doki does.
So I don't think we've talked about the actual ending cutscene really outside of what happens. We haven't talked about what happens after the cutscene yet.
No, we haven't.
So
Okay, it's worth covering that.
After the cutscene ends, after Marie pulls out the handgun and shoots Trevor, which is what's in the case that you found at the very beginning, because Trevor broke in the window. We should mention, because I don't think we said this, he followed them home from the orange grove.
Right.
So that is from the pool. But
that's
either way,
where the orange grove was.
okay.
Anyways, so they were swimming. They went out one evening and were swimming. On their way back, Trevor, I guess, followed them there and then followed them home or whatever. Climbs in through the window. They're scared. He attacks Marie. Well, he hits Kelsey and then attacks Marie.
Attacks both of them with a knife.
Yeah, and then she pulls out the gun and says, "So I'll do it." You know, does the classic, and then he goes and attacks her, and then she shoots him. Then the cutscene ends, basically. And then we spawn back into current day. The bed is completely gone. Most of the bedroom is stripped down. There's nothing left. And then you hear a voice. It says, "Mom, Aunt Marie's waiting by the car. Don't forget the journal." And you go and you pick up the journal, and then you run down the stairs. So I guess whatever happened, everything works out. Kelsey's a mom and Marie's close friend of the family. Which I was expecting it to go way darker, and I appreciate that it didn't.
Yeah, it's nice that it had a happy ending.
Yeah, for once.
I was really not expecting that too, because if you wander around in the little living room area right before you go into Marie's room and kind of get locked in there, there is a box. There's a box of wine. No, it's a wine guide on the table. She's like, "Oh, I'm gonna need a lot of wine after this," and I'm like, "Oh man." But it seems like, I don't know, maybe I don't know why she needed all this wine, because
Maybe she's just like me and really likes wine, except I like beer. It's like, oh man, I need a lot of beer.
I mean, there was also an implication that her mother was an alcoholic to the point where
Right.
she couldn't buy food.
It wasn't even an implication, they said it directly.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess that little bit of context, it was kind of a nice punt fake, because I was Blind had said that this is a sad game, and I didn't really think it was a sad game.
It kind of is.
It kind of is, but I think there's a happy ending, so then
It's bittersweet.
Bittersweet, that's a good term.
Yeah.
So
I wanted to say one thing,
yeah.
because everyone had kind of went around and talked about sort of their final thoughts about it, talking about, you know, what they were looking for in this game. And I want to mention something that I had already made the comparison to Doki Doki as another free game, but I realized a better comparison might be to Dr. Langesgoth, because it's more of a similar length, they're about the same price tag, and I feel like coming away it's the same question, because Dr. Langesgoth was basically a teaser for the studio, basically saying, hey, we're going to be releasing more games. Some of these are going to be paid. You might want to buy them.
They still haven't released a game.
Yeah, no, they haven't. But it kind of, my response to this is sort of, well, does this game make me interested in what the devs are going to do next? And the answer is, yeah, kind of. I mean, I'd have to know what kind of thing they're going for. This doesn't necessarily leave me wanting more, but I didn't dislike it. And if they release something really interesting next, yeah, sure.
I think the main difference with that is if Crows, the developers of Dr. Langescoff, the Tiger, and the incredibly cursed Emerald, a Whirlwind Heist, if those guys went and put out a new game, I would buy it like that. If this guy put out a new game, I probably wouldn't notice. You know, I think that the main thing that missed with me is this game just didn't. So I'm gonna just put into the chat or DLTTATTCEAWH for short. Yeah, sure. I don't know why I still remember the title of that game.
It's a good title. It's
literally a title made to make you remember the game.
Yeah.
Will you remember Marie's Room?
Nothing to do with what the game is, though. Anyways,
recently I wanted to call it Dr. Langescoff the Tiger and why I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb. I was like, wait, no, that's not it. How I learned to stop worrying and love the bomb.
Sorry, I kind of derailed your train of thought there.
Yeah, okay.
Completely, yeah. Not that I really had one in the first place. We talked about a 45-minute long game for close to an hour now.
I think that there was a lot of like ability to read into the story.
Yeah, that's good.
And so
I will say the writing in this thing for what is there is good. I just wish there was more of it. You know, I wish that, you know how we were talking about context, right? They stated that Trevor sent 5 emails to Marie when he's harassing her. I wish that I could go back and read those emails. I'd like to know what else was in there. Even though it was probably just belligerent bullshit, I would like to be able to read that. There was points like early on where they're talking about, how Trevor's buying Kelsey a lot of stuff. I wish there was a little bit more information about Trevor and Kelsey's relationship early on, because we are, from Kelsey's point of view, she could have monologued or something, which I think would have given us some more context on that. Maybe what caused them to break up after La La Land and all that, because that whole area of the game seemed a little disjointed. Overall, I think it's a nice short story that tells a story about a topic that everybody should pay attention to. Harassment and domestic violence are not fun, and for the love of God, call a helpline, which is what they probably should have done. It's just use their phones and call the helpline, but maybe they did.
The phone that Trevor bought for Kelsey.
Yeah. And outside of that, I don't know how much I'll think about it. I would like to see what the developers do in the future. Actually, one thing I will say that I really, really liked, the FOV is like 95. It's not a terrible FOV. Also, the game's pleasant looking. Looks nice.
And it ran at my monitor's refresh rate without any hassle.
Probably it's just an uncapped frame rate.
Maybe, but it used the Unreal Engine, and the other Unreal Engine game that I messed with, Empathy, has a cap because of something called frame rate smoothing.
I mean, it ran well. It looked nice. Like, the art style kind of reminded me of Virginia a little bit.
Yeah, I was thinking when I got to the main menu, I was like, wait, did we play this game before? Because it looked oddly familiar, and I couldn't place it. And I think you're right. Virginia had a similar menu.
Not. I wasn't thinking about the menu. I was just thinking about the game itself, just graphically.
I guess
maybe it's
didn't
California.
really remind me of Virginia. California was very like hyper stylized in a way that this game was not.
The main menu had sort of like a drawn aesthetic, and I wasn't sure. I don't know. For some reason, I thought I played the game already.
The only way I can describe Californium's aesthetic was rad.
I'm pretty sure that's Jazz Punk's aesthetic.
No, that's just Jazz Punk's aesthetic.
Yeah.
Jazz Punk's aesthetic is just Jazz Punk's aesthetic. Anyways,
Yeah.
I think we're just like digressing here at this point.
Okay, yeah.
Should we wrap up?
Yeah.
I guess my final thought is that it's a free game and it is quick to play. So if you just want to fill up half an hour to an hour of your time,
get some achievements on Steam that aren't too hard.
Yeah, and just have a very relaxing storyline. There's not like a lot of stress that you're gonna get from this, or despair or depression. It's I don't know, maybe for some people I think it could trigger those emotions, but there's a happy ending. So
compared to the last game we played, this game's all butterflies, happy, roses and whistles.
It's a good contrast.
Yes.
I don't have much to add. I pretty much had my conclusion when I was talking about Dr. Lingoskoff.
Yeah,
okay.
Same here, more or less. But I will just say that, you know, it's free to play it.
Yeah.
Free.
Free's good. I like free.
It's always worth it when it's free. Okay.
Anyways, thank you very much for watching this episode of Storm. Anyways, no, seriously, we're gonna wrap up here. If you haven't seen the show before, I know there's a few people in the chat a little bit confused. This is a story-based, a story game podcast similar to a book club where we sit down and we talk about a game that we played over the last 30 days. We do this for fun, and we've been hosting this show now for what, 2 and a bit years. We do one episode a month, usually the second Sunday of the month, sometimes the third, depending on our schedules. You can find the show on SoundCloud at Project Storymode. You can also find our Steam curator, which is just Storymode, or maybe Storymode Podcasting. I don't know. I'm dumb. You'll find it. It's not too difficult. And then you can follow the show on Twitter at Real Storymode. I will tweet out when the VOD is up for this, and everything else is on my YouTube channel, which can be found at youtube.com/ggblindone. Outside of this show, I stream on twitch.tv/blindIRL. I'm a full-time affiliate broadcaster, and you can find the strategy and simulation games I play over there. Anybody else want to shout out anything?
I have a couple projects that I'm working on that nobody probably cares about, but I'm still slowly working on OpenRCT2 features, but they'll probably get sidelined by another project which is magic related, which is still in the works. But I'm trying to do more things that are not just that are like content creation, that are not, you know, streaming or something like that.
It's a fun hobby. Content creation is a fun hobby.
Mm-hmm.
And so when can I expect my speed run of Marie's Room world record?
I'm not gonna actually. I may record it and just upload it, but not actually submit it to any leaderboards because it'd be a stupid run. But yeah, I am trying to get
Frozen Durality speedruns like Putt saves the zoo. That's pretty stupid.
Well, that actually is an impressive one when done correctly. But my point is, I am trying to get a little bit into speedrun. If you want to check it out, you're on my Twitch channel right now, so feel free to follow, and I may eventually stream. Probably not right away. I'm dealing with something that I don't really want to talk about publicly right now, but yeah, I should get back into streaming eventually.
Alrighty.
Cool stuff.
And, I guess thank you very much for watching this episode of Story Mode. Lewis can take us out whenever. Thanks for watching. Cheers, everybody.
Bye.